name is Nora Callahan. I am 34 years old, and right now a sitting federal appellate judge is standing at the far end of my grandmother's mahogany dining table, holding a glass of sparkling water, and the toast he started about my sister's engagement has turned into the most precise, quiet cross-examination of my entire life. He stopped walking exactly at my chair 1 second ago. He was talking about integrity and what it means to let someone into your family. My mother was glowing. My sister was pressing her cheek against her fiance's shoulder, and then the judge looked down at me and said, in a voice that carried all the way to the kitchen, "I have to be honest. I was not expecting to see you here tonight." Then, he asked the question that split my whole life story right down the center seam. "Who exactly are you to this family?" Every fork stopped halfway to a mouth. My mother let out a bright, papery laugh and spoke before I could draw air. "Oh, Nora is our oldest. Administrative work, mostly. Very private." The judge did not look at her. To understand how I became the daughter my own parents rehearsed away before a dinner party, you have to understand the shelf test. I invented that name when I was 8, staring at our living room bookshelf. 7 framed photos. 6 of my younger sister Brooke in a tutu, blowing out birthday candles, her first communion dress, and one of me. A school photo wedged behind a brass vase and a stack of devotional books. You had to tilt your head sideways to find my eyes. I climbed up and moved my picture to the center shelf. The next day, it was back behind the vase. I never moved it again. I moved myself instead. Every time my mother quietly erased me, I raised the stakes. Honor roll, school paper editor, scholarship to Ohio State. None of it migrated my photo forward. When I graduated top of my class, she left my academic awards dinner early to watch Brooke perform in a regional choir showcase and called me from the car. "Brooke hit a note tonight that gave everyone chills," she said. Like that was the news of the day. I drove to Columbus with my father's handshake still formal on my palm, and my mother's parting advice ringing in my ear. "Don't go up there thinking you're something special." Nora, at the Columbus Dispatch. I scraped my way from fact-checking to front-page investigations. My first major story, a property management company pocketing federal housing assistance while leaving tenants without heat in January, ran on a Sunday. By Tuesday, the city had opened an investigation. My editor leaned over my desk. "Nice work, Callahan." 2 words. They felt like a standing ovation. I called my mother that night. She let me get through 1 sentence before asking whether I'd seen that Brooke had been promoted to shift supervisor at her hotel. I kept running the shelf test from 300 miles away. Every byline, every award, every raise. Instead, my mother told the neighbors. I dropped out and moved to the city because I couldn't handle small-town life. I know because a family friend stopped me at a funeral and said, "Your mom mentioned you've been having a hard time finding your footing." I had just been nominated for a State Press Association award. The problem was never what Brooke did for a living. The problem was what my mother did with it. To hear her describe Brooke's career as weekend hotel manager, she was essentially running a boutique hospitality brand. She told her book club, "Brooke oversees a full staff and manages high-profile clientele." Her holiday card one year said, "Brooke was flourishing in hospitality leadership. Brooke scheduled housekeeping rotations and approved overtime requests." Nothing wrong with that. The lie was the problem. When I pointed out the gap, my mother looked at me with something close to pity and said, "Not everything has to be so literal. Nora, I don't have a husband or children. I live in a 1-bedroom Columbus apartment with legal pads on the kitchen counter and a half-dead plant. I keep watering out of stubbornness. There's no Instagram-friendly version of investigative reporting, so my mother built one for Brooke instead. My name never appeared once on her social media page in 7 years of my published work, not even in a background holiday photo. Just my elbow cropped clean. 8 months before that dinner, I had covered a wrongful death lawsuit after a traffic stop in a Columbus suburb. The case ran 11 days. The federal judge was a precise, silver-haired figure who read every brief and tolerated 0 unprepared attorneys. I was in the gallery every single day. After the verdict, I ran into him at the elevator. He stopped, looked at me, and said, "Ms. Callahan, your series on this case has been the most disciplined local reporting I have seen in this district in years. You should be proud of it." Then he got in the elevator. I stood in that hallway for 45 before I remembered how to walk. I wanted to call my mother. I didn't. The night of the dinner, I reached for the blazer I'd worn on stage when I accepted the Ohio Journalism Award for that same courthouse reporting. I hadn't planned to wear it. Reached for it on instinct. Pulling it on, I understood why. It was the one piece of clothing that knew exactly who I was. My mother opened the door before I knocked. I was doing an inventory of my appearance. You're early. We need to go over a few things. She moved through the house, like a stage manager giving final notes. She pointed to my place card positioned at the far end near the kitchen door. Nora, not everything is a crusade. This night is about your sister. Her fiance's family is important. Just be pleasant and stay in the background. The guests arrived. Brooke's fiance, Daniel, his mother, Carol, and Judge Hargrove and his wife, Patricia. My mother introduced me as our oldest administrative work. Very private. The judge took my hand, looked at me, and said my name slowly. Something moved behind his eyes. She steered him toward the table, but as he turned away, he looked back over his shoulder. His mental filing system had already found the folder. Dinner was my mother's masterwork. She poured wine, passed bread, narrated Brooke's highlights, and rerouted every question that drifted my direction. Nora, grab more ice. Nora, check on the rolls. The fourth time Carol tried to loop me in, asking what I covered, my mother spoke directly over my first sentence. Then the judge tapped his water glass. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and spoke about family and character, and what it means to enter a new family with eyes fully open. He gave Brooke a kind sentence about her warmth. Then he walked the slow, deliberate courtroom walk around the outer edge of the table and stopped at my chair. I have to be honest. I was not expecting to see you here tonight. My mother jumped in. He didn't look at her. Who exactly are you to this family? I thought about swallowing it, smiling, repeating the office work line and watching the moment pass. And then I thought about the courthouse hallway, the stack of notebooks on my kitchen counter. My name never once on my mother's page. I am their daughter and Brooke's older sister. I said, and I am an investigative reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. My mother, she does a little writing, but really it is more administrative in nature. The judge turned toward her for the first time all evening. His expression was not unkind. It was simply without mercy. Mrs. Callahan, Nora's reporting, series on the Milford traffic. Stop case was cited in multiple legal briefs in my courtroom. It contributed directly to how that case was argued. It was some of the most careful journalism I have encountered in this district. Carol looked at my mother, voice level and absolutely cold. You told us your daughter did office administrative work. Nothing about front-page investigations cited in federal court. My mother fumbled her napkin. I did not want to make a fuss. Brooke turned to Daniel. Your mom told me Nora had some personal struggles, and that it was better not to bring up her work situation. My sister put her hand flat on the table. That is not true. Nora does not have personal struggles. She has a career. She looked at our mother. Why would you say that to his family? My mother's eyes filled. I was protecting us. Nora's work upsets people. I did not want that following you into this relationship. Patricia stood slowly. What you did was erase one daughter to perform a better story about the other. That is not a mother protecting her family. That is a woman protecting her own image. My father, silent as furniture all evening, looked up from his plate. She is right, Linda. You went too far. The judge reached into his jacket, walked to my corner of the table, and placed a card next to my water glass. If you ever want a reference for a fellowship or a panel, Miss Callahan, you have my number. Brooke looked at Daniel for a long moment. I need you to understand something. I did not know she told your parents those things, and I need to figure out whether I should have known. She pulled the ring from her finger and set it carefully on the table. Not dramatically, almost gently. I am not saying no. I am saying not yet. Not until I understand what I was standing inside of. I stood, folded my napkin, picked up my blazer. I turned to my mother. I love you. But tonight is the last night I will make myself small so you can feel tall. If you want me at your table, it will be as I actually am. She flinched. My father bowed his head. I walked out without waiting for anyone to call me back. 11 messages in the morning. My mother, escalating. You have humiliated this family. I hope your career is enough to keep you company. Brooke, late that night. I don't know how to feel right now, but I am not angry at you. My father, at 6:14 a.m. A single sentence. I am sorry, Nora. 3 words. More honest than anything he'd said to me in a decade. And a number I didn't recognize. Terrell Hargrove. My husband has talked about your recording for months. I'd love to have coffee if you're ever open to it. We met 3 weeks later, she said. Your mother told me you had been through some things. I believed her because she said it with such concern. She has been saying variations of that story since I was in college. Carol asked, What do you call it when someone does that to their own child? The shelf test, I said, where you keep checking whether they've moved your picture to the front yet. Did they ever? Once, I said. After all of this, Brooke called 6 weeks later. I knew Mom's version of you was wrong. I just found it easier to let her tell it. She apologized in pieces, the way real apologies work. Daniel and Brooke are in couples counseling now. The ring went back on 3 months later, quietly. Just a photo she sent me one morning with no caption. I wrote back, I see it. Good. My mother called on a Wednesday afternoon. I have been telling people a story about you that wasn't real. I told it so long that I think I started to believe parts of it. A long pause. I am sorry for asking you to hide. I don't fully understand your work, but I should have asked you to help me understand it instead of pretending it didn't matter. It was not the apology I had imagined as a child, not a public reckoning. It was a tired woman on a Wednesday afternoon telling the truth for maybe the first time in a long time. If you want to try again, I said, it has to be with the real me. She said, I know. I drove back to Clover Hills for the first time on a Saturday in November. No occasion, just a Saturday. Inside, I looked at the shelf by the front window. My childhood school photo, front teeth slightly too large for my face, was front and center, not behind the vase. The brass vase had been moved to the side, slightly crooked, like the decision had been made. Quickly, and she hadn't known what to do with the thing that used to take up that space. At dinner, over pot roast, she asked, so, walk me through how a story of yours actually works. From the beginning, a basic question, the kind any parent might ask at any table. I answered her step by step, and she listened, asking questions when she didn't understand, nodding when she did. She didn't redirect to Brooke. She didn't make it smaller than it was. It was not a healed family. It was not the end of the work. But it was a door cracked open that had been sealed shut for most of my life. If you have ever sat at a table where your own family treated you like a supporting character in their story, hear this clearly. Love that requires you to be smaller than you are is not love. It is management. The night the judge stood in front of me and asked who I was to my own family, I thought answering honestly might cost me my mother for good. What it actually cost me was the role she had written for me, the invisible oldest daughter who keeps quiet so the golden child can shine. Roles can change, but only when someone refuses to keep reading from the old script. And if you are sitting at a table right now, where the price of admission is pretending to be less than you are, ask yourself one question. Who decided that was what belonging to them was supposed to cost you? Because the first person who needs to know you are done making yourself small is not them. It is you.